What happens when one of the biggest superstars in the world walks into what should be a friendly late-night interview, only to discover the host has prepared an ambush that will backfire spectacularly? Tonight, we witnessed Jennifer Lopez absolutely destroy Jimmy Kimmel on his own show in ways that will leave you speechless. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in how to handle a disrespectful host who thought he could embarrass a legend. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment, because what you're about to see will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about late-night television. The tension was palpable from the moment Jennifer Lopez stepped onto the Jimmy Kimmel live stage. Something felt different tonight. The usual warmth that accompanies celebrity appearances was replaced by an icy atmosphere that even the studio audience could sense. Jimmy, sitting behind his desk with that trademark smirk, had clearly prepared something special for his guest. But what he didn't anticipate was that Jennifer Lopez came ready for war. "Jennifer Lopez, everybody," Jimmy announced as the applause died down, his voice carrying a tone that suggested this wouldn't be the typical softball interview his publicists had promised. "Thank you for being here tonight, Jennifer. Or should I say, should I call you J-Lo, or are we past that whole era now?" The question seemed innocent enough, but Jennifer's eyes narrowed slightly. She had been in this business long enough to recognize a setup when she heard one. "You can call me Jennifer," she replied coolly, settling back in her chair with the poise of someone who had weathered far worse storms than whatever Jimmy Kimmel could throw at her. "Jennifer it is," Jimmy continued, shuffling his note cards with theatrical precision. "Now, I have to ask, because our viewers are dying to know, and honestly I've been curious myself. You've had quite the year, haven't you? I mean, between the various projects, the personal life changes, the social media moments that had everyone talking, it's been a lot to keep up with." Jennifer tilted her head slightly, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's been a productive year, Jimmy. I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've had to create, to perform, to connect with my fans. That's what matters to me." Right, Jimmy nodded, but there was something predatory in his expression. "But let's talk about some of those connections, shall we? Because there have been some interesting stories floating around. Stories about diva behavior on sets, stories about demanding impossible things from your team, stories about, well, let's just say not being the easiest person to work with." The studio fell silent. This wasn't the playful banter that late-night audiences expected. This was Jimmy Kimmel deliberately trying to embarrass one of the most successful entertainers in the world, and everyone in that room could feel the shift. Jennifer's posture straightened, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had built an empire from nothing. "Jimmy, I think there might be some confusion here. Are you asking me about my work ethic? Because I'd be happy to talk about that. I've been in this industry for over 3 decades, and I've built my career on professionalism, dedication, and treating everyone I work with respect. If you have specific questions about my projects, I'm here to answer them. But if you're here to repeat gossip and tabloid rumors, then maybe we should talk about why that is." Jimmy's smile faltered for just a moment before he pressed on. "Oh, come on, Jennifer. Don't be so serious. This is just friendly conversation. I mean, we've all heard the stories, the writers, the demands, the tantrums. Surely you can laugh about some of these things now, right?" "Tantrums?" Jennifer repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "Jimmy, let me ask you something. When a male artist has specific requirements for their performance, for their comfort, for their ability to do their job at the highest level, what do you call that?" Jimmy shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I don't know. Professionalism?" "Exactly," Jennifer said, leaning forward slightly. "But when a woman, especially a Latina woman, has those same standards, those same requirements, suddenly she's difficult. Suddenly she's throwing tantrums. So I'm wondering, Jimmy, which category do you think your own contract negotiations fall into? Because I'm sure you have plenty of requirements about your dressing room, your schedule, your creative control over this show." The audience was completely silent now, sensing that something unprecedented was happening. Jimmy tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out forced and hollow. "Well, I mean, that's different. That's just, standard television stuff." "Standard for you," Jennifer replied smoothly. "But somehow not standard for me. Interesting how that works, don't you think?" Jimmy glanced at his producers off stage, clearly looking for some kind of guidance, but Jennifer wasn't finished. She had spent decades dealing with people like Jimmy Kimmel, men who thought they could diminish her accomplishments by focusing on manufactured controversies and sexist stereotypes. "You know what I find fascinating, Jimmy?" she continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. "You brought me on this show tonight, and instead of talking about my new projects, instead of talking about my music, my films, my business ventures, instead of talking about the fact that I've managed to stay relevant and successful in an industry that typically discards women the moment they hit 30, you want to talk about gossip. You want to perpetuate stereotypes. You want to make me the villain in stories that were probably made up by people who've never even met me." Jimmy tried to interrupt. "Jennifer, I think you're taking this the wrong way. I was just—" "No, Jimmy." She cut him off sharply. "I don't think I'm taking this the wrong way at all. I think you came into this interview with a specific agenda. I think you decided that tonight would be the night you tried to embarrass Jennifer Lopez on national television. What I don't think you considered is that I didn't get to where I am by letting people like you define who I am." The camera captured every moment of Jimmy's growing discomfort as he realized that his attempted ambush had backfired spectacularly. Jennifer Lopez wasn't just defending herself, she was systematically dismantling the very premise of his attack, and she was doing it with the kind of precision that only comes from years of experience dealing with people who underestimate her. The silence in the studio was deafening. Jimmy Kimmel sat behind his desk, his usual confident demeanor cracking under the weight of Jennifer's words. But instead of backing down, he made the fatal mistake of doubling down on his disrespect. "Look, Jennifer," Jimmy said, attempting to regain control of the situation, "I think you're being a little oversensitive here. This is comedy. This is entertainment. People want to hear about the real stuff, not just the press release version of your life." Jennifer's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Oversensitive," she repeated slowly as if tasting the word. "Jimmy, let me tell you what's real. What's real is that I've sold over 70 million records worldwide. What's real is that I've starred in films that have grossed over $3 billion globally. What's real is that I built a business empire that spans music, film, fashion, and fragrance. But you want to talk about whether I'm oversensitive?" Jimmy tried to laugh, but the sound died in his throat as Jennifer continued. "You know what else is real, Jimmy? The fact that you just used the word oversensitive to describe a woman who called out your unprofessional behavior. That's real. That's the real story here. A late-night host who thought he could bully a guest and then acted surprised when she refused to play along." The audience began to murmur, and not in Jimmy's favor. Jennifer had completely shifted the narrative, and everyone in that room could feel it. "Now wait a minute," Jimmy said, his voice rising slightly. "I'm not bullying anyone. I'm doing my job. This is what late-night television is. We ask the tough questions. We have fun with our guests. We?" Jennifer interrupted, her voice cutting through his explanation like a blade. "Jimmy, there's no we here. You're the one who decided to ambush a guest who came here in good faith. You're the one who chose to perpetuate harmful stereotypes instead of having an actual conversation. Don't drag your entire industry down with you." Jimmy's face was beginning to flush red, and his handlers off stage were making increasingly frantic gestures, but he pressed on, clearly flustered. "Jennifer, you're making this into something it's not. I mean, come on. You have to admit that some of the stories about your behavior, some of the things that have been reported—" "Reported by who?" Jennifer demanded, leaning forward in her chair. "Jimmy, name your sources. If you're going to sit here on national television and essentially call me a liar, then name your sources. Tell me exactly who told you these stories about my alleged behavior." Jimmy fumbled with his note cards, clearly unprepared for this level of pushback. "Well, I mean, there have been various reports, industry sources, people familiar with the situation." "People familiar with the situation," Jennifer repeated mockingly. "Jimmy, do you hear yourself right now? You brought me onto your show to attack my character based on anonymous sources and industry rumors. Do you understand how irresponsible that is? Do you understand how damaging that is?" The studio audience was now completely on Jennifer's side, and Jimmy could feel the shift happening in real time. But instead of gracefully backing down, he made another critical error. "Jennifer, I think you need to calm down," he said, and the moment those words left his mouth, the entire atmosphere in the room changed. Jennifer sat back in her chair, a smile spreading across her face that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Did you just tell me to calm down, Jimmy?" Jimmy realized immediately that he had made a mistake, but it was too late to take it back. "I just meant, maybe we should take a breath and—" "No, no, no," Jennifer said, holding up her hand. "You just told a woman, on national television, to calm down after you spent the last 10 minutes trying to humiliate her with unsubstantiated gossip. Jimmy, do you have any idea what you just did?" The camera captured every detail of Jimmy's growing panic as he realized that his interview had gone completely off the rails. Jennifer Lopez wasn't just defending herself anymore, she was delivering a masterclass in how to handle disrespect, and she was doing it with a grace and power that made Jimmy look smaller with every passing second. "Let me explain something to you, Jimmy," Jennifer continued, her voice steady and controlled. "I've been dealing with men like you my entire career. Men who think they can diminish me, who think they can make themselves look bigger by making me look smaller. Men who think that because I'm a woman, because I'm Latina, because I came from nothing, that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of respect they're willing to throw my way." Jimmy tried to interrupt. "Jennifer, I never said anything about your background. I never—" "You didn't have to say it explicitly, Jimmy," she cut him off. "It's in every question you've asked tonight. It's in your tone, it's in your assumptions, it's in the fact that you thought you could get away with this kind of behavior in the first place." The audience was completely captivated now. This wasn't just a celebrity interview anymore. This was Jennifer Lopez delivering a speech that would be talked about for years to come. "You want to know what real diva behavior looks like, Jimmy?" she asked, standing up from her chair with fluid grace. "Real diva behavior is thinking you can invite someone onto your show and then spend the entire time trying to tear them down. Real diva behavior is believing that your platform gives you the right to spread rumors and perpetuate harmful stereotypes. Real diva behavior is telling a successful woman to calm down when she refuses to accept your disrespect." Jimmy was visibly sweating now, completely out of his depth, and clearly regretting every decision that had led to this moment. But Jennifer wasn't finished with him yet. Jimmy sat frozen behind his desk, his face a mixture of panic and humiliation as Jennifer Lopez stood before him, radiating the kind of power that can't be manufactured or faked. The studio audience was completely silent, hanging on every word of what was becoming the most spectacular takedown in late-night television history. "You know what, Jimmy?" Jennifer said, her voice carrying across the studio with crystal clarity. "I think we need to have an honest conversation about what just happened here tonight. Because this isn't really about me at all. This is about you." Jimmy opened his mouth to speak, but Jennifer held up her hand, and somehow that simple gesture commanded more authority than anything he could have said. "This is about a man who built his career on the premise that he could make jokes at other people's expense and call it entertainment. This is about someone who confused cruelty with comedy and thought that no one would ever call him out on it. But here's the thing, Jimmy, I'm calling you out." The camera zoomed in on Jimmy's face, capturing every bead of sweat, every nervous twitch, as Jennifer continued her methodical destruction of his credibility. "Let me ask you something, Jimmy. In your preparation for this interview, did anyone on your team suggest that maybe, just maybe, you should focus on my actual accomplishments? Did anyone think it might be interesting to talk about the fact that I'm one of the few artists who has successfully transitioned between music, film, television, and business? Did anyone consider that your audience might actually want to hear about my creative process, my upcoming projects, the lessons I've learned in 30 years of entertainment?" Jimmy tried to nod, but the gesture came across as pathetic rather than agreeable. We could certainly talk about those things." "No, Jimmy," Jennifer interrupted, her tone suggesting that his time to participate in this conversation was over. "We're not going to talk about those things now. Because you made a choice. You chose to turn this interview into an attack. You chose to prioritize gossip over substance. You chose to disrespect not just me, but every woman who has ever been labeled difficult for having standards." The audience was beginning to applaud, slowly at first, then with increasing enthusiasm as they realized they were witnessing something historic. "But here's what I find most interesting about tonight, Jimmy," Jennifer continued, pacing slowly in front of his desk like a prosecutor delivering closing arguments. "You seem to have forgotten that I didn't get to where I am by accident. You seem to think that my success is some kind of fluke, something that happened to me rather than something I created through decades of hard work, strategic thinking, and refusing to accept less than I deserve. Jimmy swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly as he struggled to maintain some semblance of composure. So let me remind you of a few things, Jimmy. Let me remind you that when I started dancing on In Living Color, people said I'd never be taken seriously as an actress. When I got my first film role, they said I'd never be a leading lady. When I decided to pursue music, they said I'd never be a real singer. When I started my businesses, they said I was just a celebrity trying to cash in on my fame. With each statement, Jennifer's voice grew stronger, more commanding, and Jimmy seemed to shrink further into his chair. But here I am, Jimmy, still here, still successful, still creating, still proving people wrong. And do you know why? Because I learned a long time ago that the only way to deal with people who try to diminish you is to shine brighter than they ever thought possible. The studio erupted in applause, but Jennifer wasn't finished. She waited for the noise to die down before delivering what would become the most quoted line of the entire exchange. You brought me on this show tonight because you thought Jennifer Lopez would be an easy target. You thought you could make yourself look clever by making me look foolish. But what you forgot, Jimmy, is that I've been underestimated by better men than you, and I'm still here. Jimmy's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. Let me tell you what's going to happen now, Jimmy, Jennifer said, walking back toward her chair but not sitting down. Your viewers are going to see this interview, and they're going to make their own judgments about who handled themselves with class tonight and who didn't. Your colleagues in the industry are going to see how you treat your guests, and they're going to remember that the next time someone considers appearing on your show. The camera captured Jimmy wiping sweat from his forehead with a tissue, his carefully crafted television persona completely shattered. But most importantly, Jimmy, young women who are watching this are going to see what it looks like when someone refuses to accept disrespect. They're going to see that you don't have to smile and nod when someone tries to tear you down. They're going to learn that having standards isn't the same thing as being difficult, and that standing up for yourself isn't the same thing as being oversensitive. Jennifer finally sat back down, crossing her legs elegantly and fixing Jimmy with a stare that could have melted steel. Now, Jimmy, since we still have a few minutes left in this interview, would you like to ask me about my actual work? Would you like to hear about the projects I'm excited about, the causes I support, the things that actually matter? Or would you prefer to continue with your original plan of trying to embarrass me? Jimmy fumbled with his note cards, his hands shaking slightly. Jennifer, I think maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. No, Jimmy, she said firmly. We didn't get off on the wrong foot. You started this interview with the intention of attacking me, and I simply refused to let you get away with it. There's a difference. The studio audience burst into sustained applause, and even some of the camera operators could be seen nodding in approval. Jimmy looked around desperately, clearly hoping for some kind of intervention from his producers. But none came. You know what the really sad thing is, Jimmy? Jennifer said as the applause died down. This could have been a great interview. We could have had a real conversation about art, about business, about the challenges and rewards of a long career in entertainment. Instead, you chose to waste everyone's time, including your own. Jimmy made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Jennifer, I want to apologize If you what, Jimmy? She interrupted. If you offended me? If you crossed a line? Jimmy, there's no if here. You absolutely crossed a line. You absolutely behaved unprofessionally. The question is whether you're actually sorry, or whether you're just sorry that it didn't work out the way you planned. The final nail in Jimmy's coffin came when Jennifer stood up again, smoothing down her dress